Hello and welcome to a new week of meals. You will have to ignore my voice. I have come down with some laryngitis. I think I did a bit of too much singing this weekend, so there you have it. So I will try to keep the talking to a minimum just because I'm on vocal rest and all of that. But I will link the recipes I have below, and you're in luck. Most of them are recipes that I have a link for. So check out the description box if you're interested. I'm starting off with our church group, our small groups on Monday, and it is my turn to cook dinner. So I decided to make a Cuban picadillo, and in addition to that, I thought I'd do up some plantains. Now, these aren't the traditional plantains that you think of, the long, slender ones. I couldn't find any that were sweet, and I wanted to do the sweet kind of plantains, fried plantains, but I couldn't find those, so I opted for these instead. These are what we call sabat plantains or sabat bananas in Tagalog, but I thought I could still fry them up and they might be a little sweet. They ended up being not so sweet, not as ripe as I would have liked them. So these almost basically turned out to be kind of like the, what do you call them? Oh, what do you call them? Tostones. That's like the word I was looking for, tostones. Anyway, so what I'm doing here is I've sliced up the bananas and I am coating them in some oil. Instead of pan frying these, I'm going to just stick them in the oven. So I have a baking sheet here with some foil. I'm going to throw that in the oven and bake that up until that is nice and brown on both sides. And here you go. These are the finished, I'm going to call them tostones, even though they're not really. Tostones, I traditionally like you smash them up and they become a little thinner. But in any case, I'm moving on to the picadillo. Again, recipe will be linked down below. I am going to cook up the meat and add the seasonings. It's pretty simple. You just kind of add the ground beef and then the different seasonings. Now, the recipe I'm linking down below has separate spices that you will be adding to the recipe. However, I noticed that at the bottom of the recipe in the notes section, it said you could use the sazon seasoning, which is like a pre-mixed kind of bag of assorted spices. I picked up my sazon from the Latin aisle in the grocery store, and I had already had this from the last time I made picadillo, so I'm just going to use that instead. And then you'll also notice towards the end I decided to add those individual spices just to add it, I don't know, add a different flavor profile, see if that helped a little bit with the seasoning. And then I added a third packet of sazon. So I'm loosely following the recipe here, and it turned out really delicious. So I'm going to let you watch the video and check out the link below for the recipe if you'd like to give this a try. It was really, really yummy. Continue stirring this up and giving it a taste test, make any adjustments as I see necessary before adding the last ingredients, which are the olives and the raisins. And the raisins, I really, if you are not a fan of adding raisins to something savory like this, I don't know, maybe give it a try. It does add a little bit of sweetness. You really can't taste the raisins so much. They just add a little something extra. And I enjoy the flavor of them in here, but you can totally omit this if you don't like raisins in your meat dishes. So again, I'm just gonna cook this together, let this continue simmering and thickening up. I completely forgot, with all the excitement of everybody coming over, to record the meal. I try to do my best to record what everybody else brings so I can just show you what our dinners look like, but completely forgot on this particular evening. So what you're going to see instead, the very final clip of this meal, is a thing of leftovers. So we had just enough of the picadillo and some white rice to send with Rob off for his lunch. So I'm going to show you that at the very end of this, but enjoy the rest of this little segment here of this recipe, and I will see you in the next recipe. And there you go. Those are the leftovers for Rob's lunch the next day. Leftover picadillo. There's a little bit of plantains, the banana that I threw in a little Ziploc, and I gave that to him as well with white rice. Everybody loved this recipe. Do give it a try. It's really comforting, super easy to make. You just kind of throw it together and season as you will. And that was the first meal of the week. Moving on next to the second meal that I'm sharing with you, and it's basically a cottage pie, and I'm taking a bit of a shortcut at the end. Instead of making mashed potatoes, I'm just going to throw some shredded hash browns over the top and throw that in the oven. So again, as usual, I'm trying to rest my voice, so check the recipe link down below for the recipe that I used and gained inspiration from. And then just note that instead of mashed potatoes, I do add the shredded frozen hash browns to the top of this. So I'm using frozen peas and carrots for mine. It turned out really good. I think the last time I made this, actually, I used like a mixed vegetable, which includes like a bit of green beans, frozen green beans, and that worked out well too. So this is what I had in the freezer. I decided to use that, and it turned out really, really good. So once the liquid has reduced a bit, you can see the consistency here that I like it. I don't like it too soupy, but I think it turned out really good. I'm going to pour it into my baking dish, and this is going to go into the oven with the frozen hash browns that you'll see in just a second. And on top of the hash browns, because I didn't make the mashed potatoes with like butter or anything like that, I decided to go ahead and just put like little dollops of butter, knowing that the frozen hash brown is cold. I didn't see any sense in trying to melt the butter and then mix it together, but you know, do whatever you want. And obviously use mashed potatoes, make mashed potatoes for the top of this if you prefer. But the meat mixture itself is really tasty, so good and really, really filling. But again, here you go. There's the hash browns. I'm going to pop these into the oven and bake that off until it's all done. And don't forget to bake this on a rimmed baking sheet just in case any of the liquid spills over. So make sure to do that this time, and it was delicious. And here you go. This is the finished cottage pie with the hash browns on top. You can see nice and bubbly, still nice and juicy. Didn't spill over, which was great. I'm just going to dish this into a bowl, serve it as is, and that is going to be a nice hearty meal for the evening. If you have made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Again, I apologize for my voice just not being up to par with, well, just like a normal speaking voice, but it is what it is. So I thank you for your patience. Again, if you enjoy what you're seeing here, feel free to subscribe to the channel and do like the videos so other people can find inspiration for meals during the week. And we are going to move on to the next meal in just a second. But there you go. There is a bowl of nice, warm, delicious cottage pie with hash browns. Next up, I decided to make a sort of chicken Parmigiana, served with some pasta, and it's very simple. In lieu of regular breadcrumbs, I did use panko. So there you have the flour, the egg wash, and the panko breadcrumbs. I'm also using chicken thighs. Recipe for this is down below. My chicken thighs were super thick, so I think in hindsight I probably should have butterfly this or slice them, so that they weren't so thick, but it cooked just fine. I just make sure to watch it and make sure it's fully cooked after I take it out of the oven. But I'm just going to dredge each chicken thigh. I have two very, very large ones that I'm going to dredge into flour, then into the egg wash, and then into the panko breadcrumbs. And I'm going to fry this off on the stove, and then I'm going to add some sauce and bake this up in the oven. I should mention that I did season the panko breadcrumbs. I mixed it with some garlic powder. There's some salt and pepper. There is some Parmesan and a bit of, I think I added some Italian seasoning, but I cannot be sure. Do as you see fit, or follow the recipe as written per the instructions down below in the link. So again, here is the chicken into the hot oil. I'm going to fry these because they're a little bit on the thicker side, and obviously I'm going to watch to make sure the panko doesn't burn in the oil, but I'm probably going to cook these for about 5 minutes, like 4 to 5 minutes each side. Again, just double checking underneath to make sure they're not going too long, but you can see a nice golden brown. I do flip these a couple times once they have initially browned, and then that's going to be ready once it's gotten to about 4 to 5 minutes on each side. I'm going to put that into a baking dish with some pasta sauce. I'm using this Prego Farmers Market. It is quite comparable to the Rayo's, I have to say, with the macros and just the flavor. It's nice and clean ingredients, nothing weird in there. So I'm going to do about half a jar at the bottom, and then I'm going to add the chicken to it. top that with some sliced mozzarella cheese and then a bit more sauce on top of that. Now you can also add Parmesan cheese to this if you'd like, on top of the sauce at the very, very top, or you can just do it at the end, whatever you like. But here you go. I'm taking the partially cooked yet browned chicken, putting that in the baking dish, and then I'm going to top it with all the things I mentioned and then stick it to the oven to finish cooking. And there you go, the finished chicken Parmigiana. I'm going to serve this over just a plate of spaghetti, top it with a bit of parsley to make it look super pretty. And there is the dinner for the next night that I'm sharing with you. It was really good. Just that flavor of the panko. I don't know, it's just anything fried, fried stuff. It's really good. I did eat mine without the pasta. Regardless, there is some panko on there, but it was still so good. I'm really feeling I really enjoyed this one a lot. Last meal I'm sharing with you is kind of a Filipino breakfasty kind of thing. It is just me and Colin today. However, Colin is out with friends this evening. Rob was at a conference, so basically it's just me. I'm going to make enough for 2 servings. I'm going to have some tonight, and then I had some the next morning. Basically, I'm just going to scramble up some eggs. I'm going to add some seasoning, some pepper, and some garlic salt. And then I'm going to just, mix that up so it's nice and combined. And then it's kind of basically like a scrambled egg. I don't know if I said omelet earlier, but it's basically a scrambled egg. I'm going to add some diced up onion and diced up fresh tomatoes. Now, my tomatoes aren't so fresh necessarily. If you saw a little bit earlier, they were a bit, withered? Withered? Wrinkled. Yeah, so they definitely needed to be used up, but the idea here is to use fresh tomatoes that will give off some juice, some liquid, and I'm just going to mix this up with the egg. I'm going to saute this up first just so it's a bit softened, and you don't have to do that if you want to, but this is how we do it. And then I'm going to add the egg, just going to cook it, scramble it up, and that's pretty much ready to go. I am going to serve this with some bacon and some keto bread, but I'll just let you watch this and see how I make the rest of the scramble here. You can see as the egg starts to cook, I'm just going to sort of mix everything together. I'm going to mix it together until everything's cooked through. It is going to stay a little bit moist just because of the tomato juice stuff. But yeah, this was really good, and it was a throwback. I mean, this really took me back. I haven't had this in a really long time, but I am on like a Filipino cooking board on, on Facebook. And someone posted a picture of this. I thought, oh my goodness, I have not had that in forever. And this is a typical thing that, like my mom or my aunt would cook in the morning, and we just sit around the table, have with some pandesal, which is like a Filipino roll. But there you go, some bacon, and there's that keto bread. You can butter the bread if you like or not, but this was delicious. You can serve this with ketchup if you like ketchup with your eggs, but me, I just like it as is, and it was so good. And again, it took me back. So I hope you guys enjoyed the meals for this week. Again, apologies for my voice. I hope I'm back to normal by next week in the next video, but I hope you enjoyed. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Take care until then. Bye-bye.